popularized, right?
Pardon?
They were popularized, right?
Well, see here, that's actually, of course, a person walking on stilts, dressed like a giraffe. So there's no doubt in anybody's mind that this was art presented as the original movie. I forget who wrote the music for it, but it seems to me that the guy that wrote the music for Hamilton is involved somehow. Right? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Right? Hamilton is the one that's the big hit right now.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, this is still immensely popular all over the world. So the costumes and everything is just incredibly artistic. So you can imagine, I mean, if you lived in New York, and you wanted to take your kids out to see a great show, this would be like one of the top opportunities. Oh yeah, no wonder it won awards. And they brought an awful lot of these costumes here, so
Just watch Lion King.
well here's the philosophy part.
Let's go. Let's do it. Yes.
What does this beautiful production teach children? What's the moral of the story?
Filial
How-
responsibility.
Which?
Filial responsibility. The responsibility of.
Simba.
Yeah. Well, in this case, it's Simba taking up
Zazu.
the responsibility of what was left behind by his father. Rightfully taking what was left behind by his father.
But what's the embedded text in that?
Complete the circle of life.
But if we add to it hierarchical status, Simba is the rightful king. It's not a democracy.
It's a monarchy.
It's a monarchy. A paternalistic monarchy. What's Nala's job? Nala is who?
Nala's like the female.
The female.
I was
Have
thinking of the
babies
parents. I was
and
thinking
chill
of the
out.
parents.
But Nala's like, no, you need to.
Her job is to convince Simba to come back and take his rightful place as the king.
Yep.
So what does that teach women? Girls.
That we also have a place.
You also have a place, but it's to make the guys behave. Because they're the ones that rule.
So we keep them in check. Is that what?
Right? All right, and think about it.
Like let them
It's
lead,
not a
but let
very
them think that they're-
feministic. It's not a feministic moral at all. The what else does it teach? Who is Scar?
Oh, the jerk.
Uncle?
He's the bad guy. Bad
He's the
uncle.
bad guy.
The monkey's uncle.
Uncles are evil.
Why are we here?
The computer's screwed up in
We're
there.
watching The Lion King.
It's good enough for me.
Yeah, well, so the question now is, what's the moral that the movie teaches? And first, personal responsibility. Simba's got to come back from a life of Hakuna Matata. Ain't no passing craze. It means no worries for the rest of our days. Hakuna Matata. Hakuna
Oh boy.
Sorry, you get the idea, right?
It was excellent.
But what? Nala comes, finds him, gets him to come back,
I already forgot that part.
right?
Like the narrative almost goes against what we like our society believes now. Instead, you don't have responsibility being pushed on you, but you take up whatever you want, and that almost peace is what we should be seeking, or just like we're almost like a lot of people are like anti-materialistic, and I guess I don't know what exactly I'm going with this, but
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
huh?
I'm not sure either. What
I'm not sure either, honest. But I mean,
Well, that's part
it's
of what it
just-
teaches too, right?
Yeah,
Because
but you have
it's
to
not
think, like,
supposed
you're-
to.
You're destined into something that you can't just be at peace and be happy out in the middle of nowhere.
You got shoes to fill.
Yeah, you have shoes to fill instead. I mean, like now it's you don't really have the shoes to fill. I mean,
Yeah, you
it's
gotta make them. You gotta make your own shoes to fill.
yeah, that you have to choose what you are, not that it's put onto you.
But notice each of the animals have their designated place, their designated role. Hyenas? Hyenas are evil.
Yeah,
and they laugh.
There are no good hyenas.
unless
And
they're
by the way,
Until you
who,
get to the Lion King 2. And then there is a good hyena.
no
Really?
kidding.
I think so.
I've never seen.
Don't, it's terrible.
is it because of the hyena.
But who
I
are
don't know,
the
the whole plot is
who
just
are the
weird.
voices of the hyenas?
I don't know.
Oh, is it the other? It's like the kids. The kids.
Whoopi Goldberg is one.
Yeah, she does an excellent job.
She does. She does. And Cheech, I think, from the Cheech and Chong
I
team,
didn't know
is
that.
one of the others, but I don't remember who the third one is. Cheech Marin, I think. But here's an interesting thing. How do the hyenas talk?
Ridiculously, they just kind of sound. They're like
Unstable.
they're absurd.
Yeah.
Like they make you laugh nervously. They're those
They
kinds of people.
They speak in a urban black slang.
Oh,
That's awkward.
Or
we just
Can we pull up some of the movie? Because I cannot remember. It's been forever.
I'm surprised no one- I didn't. I remember hearing that argument too, though. That Lion King is racist.
Mr. Banana Beat, you puppy.
His face is
Right now, we are all in very real danger.
Danger? I walk on the wild side. I laugh with this danger.
See, they make you nervous.
okay, listen to me.
Well, Banzai, what have we got here? I don't know, Shenzi. What do you think, Ed?
That's not black.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what that is.
Trio of trespassers. And quite by accident, let me assure you. A simple navigational error. Whoa, wait. I know you. You're Mufasa's little stooge. I'm Madam the King's major domo. And that would make you...
Future king.
Do you know what we do to kings who step out of that kingdom?
Puh. You can't do anything to me.
Technically they can. We are on their land.
But Zazu, you told me they're nothing but slobbering, mangy, stupid vultures.
Day on Cupid's Day. What do you call an Cupid's Day? My. Oh, look at the sun. It's time to go. What's the hurry? We love you to stick around for dinner. Yeah, we could have whatever's lying around. Wait, I got one. Make mine a club sandwich. What you think? What? Hey, did we order this dinner to go? No. Why? Because there it goes! No!
These are fast hyenas.
Did we lose it?
Also, they have opposable thumbs.
Where's Zazu?
They just don't know where the liberty hop all the way to the birdie boiler. Oh no, not the birdie boiler!
Well, that's just not an escape.
Why don't you pick on somebody your own size?
You? Oops.
There we go, kid.
They're small.
Nice kid.
Sorry, I'm getting carried away. with
I was
the
saying
movie.
though, it's good stuff.
Let's just
Lion
spend
King's
the
good.
past period watching The Lion King.
And talking about the morals within it.
I don't think they sound black. I mean, they sound, I guess, kind of poor, but I mean, they don't sound black.
Poor?
Yeah. Like
They don't sound wealthy.
At the very, I've heard poor people that sound like them, but not.
What the? Let's just stereotype
Not
what poor
really,
people
not
sound
really,
like.
honestly. But I mean,
Damn.
they don't sound black.
They sound like city slickers, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they
They
sound
sound like
Deconstructing.
It's
All
not
right.
I'm pretty sure 2 of the
Isn't
3
it just
were
Hamlet?
black voice actors.
Pretty sure the Lion King is just a retelling.
It's an African story.
I mean,
think, or is it?
Hamlet-
I heard it's Hamlet.
Yeah.
And the perspective of Hong Kong Chinese, where
I
does
feel like
that
it's
come
not
from?
Hamlet though, because not everyone dies.
It's the family
Oh.
version.
Yeah. But I mean, we've heard it's an African
'Cause-
story too.
When it comes to Shakespearean tragedies, everyone dies.
I'll look it up.
This is
In
comparing
Hamlet,
it
the
to
uncle
Hong
kills
Kong
the
Chinese.
king appears in an apparition, prince gets banished, prince fights the uncle, kingdom's restored.
So
True.
Only difference in the Shakespearean
Is that-
version is everyone dies.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
the-
I'm sure there's
that's
plenty of stories
accurate.
all over the world like that.
Simba doesn't die in the end. He,
No.
of course,
He's victorious.
Americans don't like tragedy,
Nope.
It's true.
um,
No.
and so it would not have been a hit.
Would not have been a hit if Simba
Unless
died.
it's Titanic, but even then, what's her name still lives. So
I can.
Yeah, even
I
West Side
still
Story,
haven't finished
which
that.
is Romeo
The
and
only
Juliet.
passion is the love.
Juliet doesn't kill herself at the end once Romeo dies, gets stabbed in the fight, right? West Side Story.
Good for her, strong, independent lady.
But so here's the suggestion. Now this is not my idea, but it was a critique that I read. I'm not sure if this is the one. It's I searched. I think the right, but there were lots of these. That is that the evil side, all the voice characters. Well, Jeremy Irons is the evil. Scar. And notice that his portrayal in the cartoon is of an injured, unhealthy lion, right, compared to the fluffy Mufasa and Simba, right? So there's the association of unhealthy with evil, right? And it's a sin of pride. It's a matter of pride. I mean, there's a lot of puns about it, but also the voices of the hyenas are individuals that are associated in American culture with kind of a Cheech is a Puerto Rican individual,
I was gonna say, he doesn't
and
sound African American.
Whoopi always portrays kind of a urban black cultural kind of point of view, right?
What the voice actor for Ed?
it's just special.
Notice Mufasa
That
is
so, I didn't get that. His name's Ed, Special Ed.
Special Ed.
Oh my god. Disney.
I didn't catch that either.
No,
It's
neither
pretty-
did I.
Then
What?
the imagery that's associated with the evil side is verticality. So if you remember the scene where they're marching, let me see if I can.
Just really enjoying
This
this.
banana beak is scared.
It's Mr. Banana.
Big to you.
So
Lion
this-
King's-
Yeah. Lion King's Hitler. Alright.
Stick with me, and you'll never go hungry again.
So look, see how the vertical dark image.
I've seen this comparison.
It's too hard.
Obvious stiff leg.
So it's like the kind of the.
Jam.
Take certain duties on board. The future is littered with prizes, and though I may concede, the point that I must emphasize is you won't get a sniff without me.
No, doesn't. Wow.
So you see that connection, right?
Because I've seen Hitler walk
Mufasa,
with his
you know,
soldiers
is
into lava.
Okay, so here's the critique. The evil side is the urban, and the good side is the suburban. So if you grow up in suburbs and you speak the kind of English that young, educated white people speak in suburbia, you're on the good side. Now, granted, Mufasa is James Earl Jones, but remember, he's a Shakespeare-trained actor, right? So when you listen to James Earl Jones's voice, that's fantastic, good diction. So that's an educated speech, right? And when you listen to Jeremy Irons, does Jeremy Irons portray a gay person usually? I've heard that critique too, right? So not only is he wounded and evil, but there's also the gay association, right? Right. So notice he doesn't have a wife.
He has a kid though. He ends up getting a kid in the
Oh
second movie
yeah,
as well.
you haven't seen the second.
No wonder it's such a terrible movie.
Yeah, he has like. 2
How did he
kids.
have a second movie? He gets killed in the first one.
No,
Oh,
he's
they
not
never see
in.
his death, but
Yeah.
apparently he had a kid somewhere in this story. His
Yeah,
wife is
he had
his wife is just
two.
as crazy, so don't worry about
Well,
it.
No, but
But
he has like
you
that
see
older
where
brother
this-
too that's like psycho. He's like, I'm doing this for you, mother, and then he dies, and then she goes psycho, and then the kid's like, oh my god, I can't talk to the other chick anymore.
But you see where this critique is coming from. The underlying moral imagery that's being taught to the kids that literally memorize this movie is that suburban educated males are the ones that are supposed to be in charge, right? That women are supposed to be subservient to those males, right?
Man,
That-
you're ruining the Lion King for me.
Yes, yes.
Damn it, it's a good movie.
I mean, you've always.
But what's it
already seen, like, all those
teaching?
movies
Yeah, I'm
and
never gonna be able to like
all
show
the
my kids
animated
this
stuff.
because I want, especially if I have a girl.
I mean, if you take a philosophy, you can't show your kids any Disney movie, any old time
That
Disney
is
movie, in all
true.
honesty.
But, I mean,
Beauty and the Beast, you want your
also
daughter to go
Brown
get
show,
kidnapped and
like-
fall in love with her
This
kidnapper?
isn't my fault. This isn't my fault.
Exactly.
Screaming.
I'm just saying,
statutory
hey,
rape.
this is the criticism of what morality and worldview is being taught here.
This does seem like a stretch, though. I mean, like, I never thought of him as gay.
Yeah, I wish I could find that. That might be the actual
Well,
article
like,
where.
What about like Dumbledore? Like there were rumors about Dumbledore being gay.
Well,
And how to think
Dumbledore's
very-
They had to
confirmed
kill him
gay,
off.
so
Okay, well, there
he
you go.
dies.
We have to kill him out because he's gay.
That's
Jesus,
what it is.
Jesus.
Jesus wasn't gay.
No.
Well,
How
I mean,
do
he
you
never
know?
had a wife.
He's supposed to have had children, and he was a grandfather, probably.
There are
Like
many
33?
gay people
Like
out there
33?
that have wives and then
How's
they.
that possible? He
Years.
can never get married, which means he committed adultery, which means he sinned and he can't sin. Right?
Who said he never got married?
I don't know. I've never really looked into it. Good point.
Like, I heard things like about Mary something. Like Mary Lag.
Mary Magdalene.
Wasn't she a hodo?
Yeah, that's what she literally was.
I mean,
Oh,
like,
there's-
in all honesty.
There are folks that no, she was wealthy,
Oh, okay.
and she would come and listen to the conversations in the evening, and the Orthodox consider that to be terrible behavior on the part of a woman because they're supposed to stay home and knit or whatever. And instead, she was educated and interested,
Good
and
for her. Damn straight.
yeah. So, so there are churches dedicated to the Magdalene. Magdalene College, where C.S. Lewis taught, is dedicated to her. So, and no, the college would probably not have been dedicated to.
I don't know. I mean, it was like that's what I remember being taught. Is Mary Magdalene was originally a prostitute.
But that's like a really good question though. Like if Jesus can't sin
It's probably propaganda.
and he had kids,
clearly propaganda by the
Is it-
He was a
I-
rabbi. He was a rabbi.
what?
Who was
So he has a
probably-
green card? Yeah, here you go. I'm like
Go
a
ahead,
free
sin
a
just
free
a little
pass,
bit.
like skip jail card, whatever you want to call it. Like
Well, rabbis generally were older males that were outstanding members of their community.
get out of sin free card.
What, so they needed to reproduce? Is that what we're going with here?
It's part of how you got to be an outstanding male member of the community.
Gross. Gross.
Yeah, no point in the scripture does it say anything about Jesus not having a wife, not having children. In fact, he does have brothers.
Yes, I do that.
So there's all that kind of stuff. But what I'm looking at here, of course, is the annoying feature of what I'm just doing is looking at these movies that we watch all the time. This is the art of the day. Although, of course, the computer gaming is probably more popular, makes more money, has more of an impact on
Probably.
young people
Yep.
today than even movies, right?
Causes
Music,
violence.
throw music in, you know, and what do you get is all of this is how young people learn morality and how we should behave, what kind of roles we should play, what's the point of life, what's the way to be happy,
Welcome to society.
what you should be wanting to do with your spare time. I mean, you name it. How do we learn it? Art teaches it. Always has, actually.
But are we more developing now to learn in short bursts, such as through Facebook ads and whatnot now? Like, I mean, kind of on that subject where a lot of
Yeah,
people...
you know what I just did, and
You just showed us a bunch of quick clips, I mean, less than a minute long, and like,
Yeah,
we're learning all these
um,
things.
I just joined a site called
Yeah, that's what I was like.
Better not.
I really like this, right?
Have you ever heard of this?
No.
What is it?
Eter9.
We chat to each other or something?
So I'm both human and virtual, so I'm immortal now.
Nice.
Even after I die, my virtual character in this site will continue to interact with other people.
Okay, that's really weird.
Well,
That's
that's weird.
uncomfortable.
Being something to eternity.
They find out you died.
Living cyberspace.
Yeah.
Think of all the
That
like
seems so
Facebook
scary.
profiles of dead people.
All the games I
Well, that's the thing.
Oh,
Yeah, all these dead people are going to continue to interact with other people.
I mean-
Or maybe it's more other people are going to interact
Or
with the dead people.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, technically, the dead people can't really interact because they're dead.
Yeah, you can't bite. You can't
Well, the site
We'll still feed off.
will
of the
learn
things.
from what you say and how you interact,
Yeah,
and then
it'll continue to do that,
Continue
but
to do
you yourself, because you are dead, you won't be able to make any more advancements on your site because you're not.
Other people
But yes.
like, oh,
but
I
I mean
like Facebook.
I'm
Anything
loading.
I've shared on it meant for other people to see, but I never do
It's about
participate in the app things that want to share.
Although I have
information
to
beyond.
change that and say I just joined this.
Oh, is that a Facebook app?
So many things.
I clicked Facebook to get into it.
Oh.
did you get the notification? Was your public profile leaked to whatever?
I leak it myself. The more I leak it, the more popular I might get.
That's
I don't
true.
think I'm going to get very popular, but
No.
I'd have to change myself to a buxom young female with pink hair.
Pink
it's
hair.
amazing how everyone's kind of like
I'm down.
laughing and surprised that Facebook was like selling information and all that. But I mean, like, for some reason, in the back of my head, like, it grew around conspiracy theorists. And I was just thinking, they're definitely selling this. This is obvious. And
Yeah,
they're,
I would all just assume that.
yeah, I felt like everyone just assumed that too. And now everyone's surprised. I'm like, this is what
Where were
happened?
you guys? Yeah.
This has been happening.
That's how they pay for it.
Yeah, honestly.
I've never given them any money. I don't pay for my Facebook account. It's
No.
free.
Stop looking at my selfies.
But so, here's the question. Now, when you go to movies and when you take children to movies, are you going to think, hey, what's this movie teaching my children? It's not just entertainment.
I think that when I have kids, I'll more think of, oh my God, they're silent for 2 hours, thank God. More so than, oh, what is this going to display on their
Well, I
subconscious?
think it just
in the
adds
next 10
perception
years?
to them. The more the movies they see, I mean, there's going to be definitely conflicting things, but I mean, they're going to see what overall their society expects of them, and this is going to happen no matter what. You know, it'll just add more perception.
I mean, The Lion King's not going to be the only movie you're going to
That's
show
what a
your
lot of
kids,
parents do,
and they're going to
honestly.
be exposed to a whole bunch of different moral stories, I guess. And so, honestly, at that point, it's up to them to decide which one they'll subscribe to.
Well,
And then they have your influence as well as a heavy factor in that subscription. So you also personally will be what affects them as a huge amount.
hopefully, although a lot of this is embedded in your head. I mean, Hakuna Matata, I could just picture the kids singing that, And then, of course, the main theme, which is about the circle of life, right? That's a very philosophical position to take, that life is natural and a circle, and you don't want to break the circle by doing something unnatural, like Scar murdering Mufasa. And remember at the very beginning of the class, I asked what killed Mufasa, and everybody talked about, well, he was killed by Scar, etc. And then I joked, well, what killed Mufasa was he didn't move Fasa.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, terrible joke.
That's
But the sorry. See, I always say sorry, but I'm never sorry. That's one of those fake apologies, But yeah, the kids are going to grow up with that, and that's a philosophical point of view that becomes embedded in their mind that affects, say, their belief about ecology, about, the pebble mine. Oh my goodness, are we going to have the pebble mine develop now that Trump is completely destroying the EPA, replacing the leadership of the EPA with a leadership that has always been against the EPA, who arrive and reassign all of the people that have been running things to jobs that they absolutely hate, so that they basically are going to quit and leave, and then basically not replacing them so that no one's doing the job anymore. So, bless you. So companies can do whatever the heck they want, basically, with the environment.
Thanks, Trump. Doesn't have the same ring as Thanks Obama, though, which really annoys me. You'd be like, thanks, Trump.
Are we really going to get political? Please no.
But I mean,
Please no.
if you're watching The Lion King, you're going to think that nature needs to be protected, which I could see that being kind of a Disney moral point of view. Although, if you travel to Epcot Center,
I've been there, yeah.
Epcot.
You know what
Epcot?
is? It's a world, one of the worlds of Disney.
Yeah, it's one of the parks in Disney World.
I only went to the Harry Potter portion.
That
That's what
was-
matters.
That's Universal.
Oh, well, see,
It's
there,
not even Disney.
Well, then there you go. See, look at what I know.
It's basically like this depiction of different
Oh wow,
cultures around
we're
the
like
world.
going on an
You see, look,
adventure.
Epcot Center, you see it?
Wow, but wait, it's like 20 minutes long. Are we really
Welcome
gonna
to
watch
Florida,
this?
where you drive for an hour to get to
Oh,
anywhere.
so great. Wee.
Oh, it's the ball.
This is where you enter Epcot. So this used to be Everglades, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's not okay.
So Disney might promote the idea that ecology is a great thing, but if you look at what they've done to Florida,
What the heck?
there's no ecology protection there at all, as far as I know.
Oh my goodness, yes.
There's one China, one in Hong Kong.
Yeah, Epcot Center. The world is there. So basically, you could go there and you can see exactly the same exhibit for Mexico, Canada, Tunisia, or Morocco rather,
Morocco.
the United States,
What
England,
they have an exhibit for each country?
France,
Not
Japan,
each, but certain ones.
China.
Continents.
but each
Japan.
each single one has its culture
Okay.
with a little gift shop selling all the same sorts of things from that culture, a fast food restaurant selling the basic ye old fast food from that culture, plus a sit-in restaurant that you need a reservation for, serving that restaurant
And
Built
then
on
every
top of the
couple
Everglades.
Plus they
hours
have
live performances.
like a 360 movie that you stand in and it shows you what their country looks like.
Oh,
So if you think of it, every country looks the same except different.
Same format, different.
Same
Is that
format,
the,
same.
It's a small world after all.
Oh,
It's a
God.
small world
Please
after
stop.
all.
And that is exactly the older version, of course, of that, because that's a ride, if you're not familiar with it, where you go through this little boat ride, and as you're riding through it, all the kids from all the worlds are all singing that same song in all their different languages,
And all the adults are crying
And
in the
they're-
same language.
and they're all dancing and stuff. So as you're going through, you've got kids from all
It's the
these different
worst
cultures
ride.
in the caricature of that culture.
So awful.
So Disney's communicating through this entertainment that all of us are the same. We're all the same after all, even though if you're from France, you wear tutus and blue tutus, but if you're from Mexico, you wear the other kind of skirt with the and the
That was beautiful.
The
right,
it was
so
perfect though.
so of course this is kind of a moral of that story too. So all of our art teaches a moral, which of course is what Schopenhauer is trying to teach us. And there's not a whole lot of things that Schopenhauer teaches that I think are extremely laudatory, but this certainly seems to be one such lesson to learn. But then, along with that, I have posted a critique, of course.
Bio and medical technology, material science and engineering,
And this critique
disability,
is...
and that's just to mention a few. Her interests are indeed broad, but her work is deep. Her
kind of
ability to
interesting.
assimilate an enormous
This is
amount of
one of
information, distill it for the reader,
Martha
and
Nussbaum's
construct
PhD
precise
students,
and penetrating
who's now a
arguments
professor
in favor of
himself
her positions can only be described as genius.
University.
Her standing in the intellectual
And
community
she
is truly unique. Her laser
is the
focus
one who
on the
gets to
her
introduce
laser focus on
Martha
the most
Nussbaum.
significant ethical challenges humanity faces presently,
She
that-
trans?
and as a part of the very
Yes.
condition of being a human, makes her an ethical leader and a standard bearer in a world that so desperately needs such leadership. I could spend much more time heaping praise on the long list of achievements Professor Nussbaum has accomplished and underscoring the significance of her contributions to philosophy and public debate more broadly. However, you came to hear her talk and not me talk about her. I would like to say something about Professor Nussbaum, the person and the mentor. I was incredibly fortunate enough to have studied with her while I was in graduate school. She permitted me to sit in on 3 of her classes at the University of Chicago Law School and eventually agreed to be on my dissertation committee. My experience in working with her has been echoed repeatedly by others in the profession who share my good fortune in having been a student of Martha. She is an incredibly generous human being. She is generous with her time, with her intellect, and with her influence. An example will make this clear. The year I was on the job market, I ran into Martha at the annual meetings of the American Philosophical Society.
So this speech was given by her on the occasion of her winning the Kyoto Prize, which was 2016, I think.
Well, it's hard not to be rendered speechless by that introduction. But it has another side, which is that it's the engagement, the commitment, the brilliance of students of mine, graduate students, of whom Laurie is now one of the most distinguished, that makes my life so happy. And so I really have as much gratitude to Laurie as she expressed to me. I also want to thank very much the University of San Diego for hosting me. And what I want to say is that in writing about liberal education, I've always been very struck by the fact that, like other major Catholic universities, this university makes a very central place for philosophy in the undergraduate curriculum. That is not typical of other universities in the US or abroad, but it is typical of the great Catholic universities all over the world. And I said in my book, Cultivating Humanity, that all universities should follow this example. So I'm very happy to be here. Near the start of Plato's famous work, Republic, as the characters quarrel about how to define justice, Socrates reminds them, remember, it is no chance matter we are discussing, but how one should live. Political philosophy, as practiced in the Western tradition, and also the traditions of East Asia, South Asia, and Africa, has always been a practical discipline, seeking to construct a theoretical blueprint for just and decent lives in a world full of division, competition, fear, and uncontrolled catastrophes. In this lecture, I hope to provide some reasons for thinking that philosophy continues to play an important role as we work together for a better world. I'll then propose some criteria for valuable philosophical work on urgent human problems. So first, why do we need philosophy? Most of the world carries on without it. In discussions of domestic priorities, philosophical theories of justice have received at least some respectful attention from politicians and economists. When we turn to the global arena, however, to debates concerning welfare, human rights, and how to compare the achievements and the quality of life of different nations, things are otherwise. Economists hold center stage, and philosophers, until very recently, were ignored. To some extent, this neglect is caused by the fact that economics is a fully international profession with shared standards, whereas philosophy is far more varied and as often speaks differently in different cultures. In part, the neglect is due to economists' impatience with work that is discursive and non-mathematical. Economics today has invested so much in highly sophisticated mathematical models that it attracts young practitioners who are basically mathematicians and lack interest in normative reasoning. They certainly don't like to be told to go back to square one to rethink the normative ethical foundations of their enterprise, and they're actually not trained to do that rethinking. Finally, the neglect is also due to a certain arrogance among economists who feel emboldened by the deference with which nations treat them, and who therefore don't feel they need to cooperate with any other profession, surely not a humanistic one like philosophy. This neglect is new. Early economists, such as Adam Smith, were themselves philosophers. Even much later, great economists such as John Maynard Keynes and Friedrich Hayek took a very keen interest in philosophy.
Notice she looks a lot older than she did in this interview.
To that school play or what have you. I think that's a callous person, a person who doesn't.
It's a little bit when she was younger. However, so if you're not studying philosophy, if you're just enjoying the culture, the arts that we have, you're basically allowing Disney or whoever creates the art to basically dictate a philosophical point of view, not only to you, but also to your children. If you do study philosophy, and by the way, even if you don't study philosophy, you have a philosophy of life that comes from someplace. So it's not like you could avoid philosophy, because by making life choices, by valuing a job, or valuing the time with your family, or valuing family at all, as opposed to living a life of being a single person, so that you don't have to share your resources with other people, right? You know, that's an attitude among a lot of people today. Don't want to have, a family, don't want to have children, because then I have to share my resources with them, right? And I can't live the way I want to. I want to have, this kind of a life, and if I have, a family and children that I have to spend my money on, then I'm not going to be able to afford that, so I'm not interested in doing any of that. That's a philosophical choice that people make, right? What kind of job you have, whether you do other things, whether you spend your free time in different kinds of entertainment, all of that are philosophical choices that you make. Does that make sense? So you have a philosophy. But where did it come from? Was it dictated by circumstances, by happenstance, by a teacher or two somewhere in your high school that basically taught you to be interested in geology, or whatever you end up being interested in? Where did your philosophy come from? But by studying philosophy itself, you're reflecting on what's created those values in your own mind. Now, remember too that this can be a depressing feature of that, because remember Nietzsche basically is depressed because he comes to realize that God is dead. None of those philosophical narratives, those religious narratives, are true. They're all man-made, and those are all made by the authorities of that particular tradition in order to impose their will on everybody that believes it. Disney is obviously making money off of these movies, so they're not just teaching morals to the children and the parents too that watch these, right? They're not just teaching that. They're attracting you to their products so that you end up spending more money on their products. And by the way, their values have certainly evolved. You can look at their movies and see the heroines have broadened. I think I played some of Frozen, right?
Moana.
Didn't we look at Frozen for a while? I like the idea of sharing how that comes across in all these different languages, and recognizing that the moral point of view changes with the culture that Disney aims that particular, right? You saw that?
Yeah.
Or we did that, right?
Lyrics.
Yeah, they change the moral point of view. So if you look at it from an American point of view, the women are the strong characters, and they're dominant. The males are evil or dumb, for the most part, in Frozen, right? But so these are really strong female leads. The two sisters, Elsa and Anna, and that even caused. Remember, I showed the one scene where the French parents were all upset with the singer who does the song. Remember, Anais Delva was on that TV show where the parents all came out and started even singing their own version of the song, right? Didn't I do that?
Yikes.
It's hilarious, although it is in French, so you have to kind of figure out what's going on there. But
There's subtitles.
But the parents are critiquing the song, that their children grow up listening to this song and then don't behave anymore, because the movie teaches their daughters to do what they want instead of what the parents tell them. So the characters do develop. It's way different. I mean, if I look at Sleeping Beauty when I was a kid, right? Did I show you that one? Where Sleeping Beauty sings the song. I showed you this, right?
Doing it versus more.
No, I'm really not so.
She's dancing with the prince or whatever. Philip? I don't know. So this would today be considered sexual harassment, right?
Even the owl's like, yikes.
He doesn't let her go. She wants to get away.
Wasn't that?
That's harassment,
You're
right? But notice, when I was a kid, I was taught by watching this, that's how a man gets the woman to be interested in him. Keeps refusing to say no. I'm married.
Is that how you got?
I don't think
got
she
your
would
wife?
have been interested if I didn't tell her I was interested in grabbing her hand. Actually, she put her
I
hand
was
in
gonna say,
mine.
wasn't it the other way around?
Yeah.
Yeah, she put her hand in mine.
And isn't she like 16? Yeah.
Maybe he's only like 18. That's legal in
No,
most
he's
states.
probably like 22 at least.
But
If
remember,
we're being realistic here.
the newer version, which is Maleficent,
Mhm.
right? You end up with her father, or Aurora's father, basically raping the fairy, right?
I haven't seen it, so.
Maleficent.
I don't know if it was that exactly.
So the dad rapes the fairy, and that's why the fairy is like.
Butter?
What?
Man, I'm honest
I mean, I would word it a little more gently, but yes.
What's it?
Wait, so
So this is
because wait, he deflowers her, and that's why her wings
Also, it's
are
like
gone.
imagery. Okay, I thought you meant like actually, like it's just like an unspoken thing.
he cut her wings off.
Why? What a dick.
But why?
Because they're pretty.
Did he like to mount it on the wall? Like why did?
He gave them to the king as proof that he had killed her. You didn't see the movie?
No. This is awful. What the hell?
Well, Maleficent does take her point of view. It justifies her actions. It's attempted to justify her
So in this movie, Disney's giving us the same story, but from Maleficent's point of view, who has been wronged seriously. I mean, so
I'd be
in criticisms of this is interpreted as a rape scene.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
All right.
but like,
Because she starts off with wings, but he cuts them off of her. Well, he drugs her, date rape,
It's not.
and cuts the wings off.
Jesus Christ.
I feel like rape is a big word here.
well, that's the
They
image
did it
being
literally.
portrayed. Well, because
Hey man, you don't know how fairies reproduce, okay?
Yes.
You just put rape in a Disney movie.
Yeah, this is
Sped up.
Why?
That's
That
not.
sounds
That's
interesting.
not.
Well, in the end, she gets her wings back.
Oh, well, that's good. That's very positive.
Well, like how does
Didn't
she
she
get it?
die?
Wait.
The
stop
wings,
Spoilers.
the wings
Well,
are
isn't that
released.
what happens in the original?
Aurora releases the wings out of the cage that they've been kept in, and they fly back to her and reattach themselves.
Because you can regain virginity.
True love's kiss. Yeah.
I mean, if it's that imagery, like.
Yeah, this is True Love's Kiss. That's totally different than the prince kissing her, which was like, that came across as absolutely ridiculous.
I just had a funny thought, but I'm not gonna say it.
My contour gun.
So Disney's moral messages have changed over the years.
Yeah.
And it's clearly a case of, on one hand, they've adapted to the changes in our morals. On the other hand, it's also, they're doing this because they want to keep making money.
Getting back to the rules
The
now.
moral
So it's-
change is
so it's-
to keep making money.
So it's not like they're leading us to nicer morals.
I feel like we act more strict than how we did.
They're reacting to the
Are
morals.
you kidding me? I'm over this.
Get up. Is it on fire?
No, she's been chained up.
No, but it's all like red.
That's because iron hurts feelings.
Okay.
Hit your dragon.
There you go.
So would that be like a taser?
Pardon?
Would that be like a taser net? Like an electrified net?
I feel like they're gonna make stretches like that. This
Yeah.
is
It was iron.
That's
How
awful.
terribly
That is
is
so
iron?
sad.
You've never seen Maleficent?
No, and obviously this is why I shouldn't. Jeez
You
Louise.
should be.
Because it's sad? Or
Yeah.
maybe you
I think it's a
should
good
because
movie.
it's sad.
Dude, I've got too
See,
much
this
on
is
my
why
plate
Americans
right now.
don't like tragedies.
I think this
It's
is-
not a tragedy because at the end, Maleficent
Yeah, but you have to wait through the whole like hour and what?
Gets even.
45 minutes?
Wait,
She
you
gets
have
even.
to go through a story with ups and downs?
Yeah.
And a
It's
climax?
such a pain.
No, with a resolution at the end.
Yeah.
No way.
Ooh, mind blowing.
Sorry.
roller coaster would go down.
So, are you going to reevaluate the moral of the story of the videos and things you watch?
Probably not.
I can make a stretch with this like how they do with Lion King.
I'm probably just gonna take it.
What
at
is your
face value and
stretch?
move on.
It's encouraging being a lesbian.
Oh, true.
But I don't think this actually. I'm just making a stretch.
Oh my god.
Oh, because
True
of
lesbians.
the
Like how.
I
Well, that's-
can't.
Well,
Well, she's
It's
actually
like the
raised
love
her.
of a
It's like her
mother.
daughter.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But it's,
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
if you
like
think
her
about
daughter.
it, there's rumors that in the new Frozen they're making, Elsa has a girlfriend, so
Was
that
it
might
like
be
the
the underlying
Saw
eventual.
game?
That might be the underlying eventual
whoops.
tool that.
Well, that's fine. Like, but that's different. Like, if you're stretching, like,
Only trust women. This is what it's basically saying. Same with Frozen. That's what you could think about it. But that's a stretch.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Because it's
I bet
reacting
you children
to
don't
the
view it like that.
intense, feminist upheaval, uprising, upheaval.
people, you make it sound evil.
Yes. It's not, upheaval's not an evil connotation, is it?
I don't know.
Well, it's supposed to be like you're removing a power.
Well, it'd be like
You're
usurping
reading
like
out
a monarch sort of idea.
Well, maybe it's a good monarch. Now you're-
Maybe it is.
Maybe you're.
Maybe it's a patriot.
I don't know, I'm trying to keep personal ideas out of
you're
this.
saying maybe it's a patriarch?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Feminism.
That
It's
was,
a
he
patriarch.
was making the joke. That's the joke he was making.
Shoot, did I put up my
So-
phone? I really hope I did.
Let me quick. I didn't even look to see.
Thanks, man.
I'm thinking of like an exosuit. Like
This is actually
That's what everyone's
different.
like. They're like, dude, you're a robot now. No, it's really just a brace.
You can still see the leg.
I know, but exosuit. That's what
Yeah, it's an exoskeleton. You know, it gives me extra power to jump with my broken
I
leg.
mean,
Rad.
You gotta go like,
you just have
kick
to
a
numb your
wall
leg
with
and
your
you'll kick
broken leg.
anyone and it'll hurt.
Yeah, no, it's the Batman. It's the Batman suit.
No, yeah.
It's a brace that just lets me kick down walls.
even though it's got like no support on the foot, so
Yeah.
that's like the more important part.
Just like Batman.
If you go kick something, your foot just detaches all the skin.
Oh no.
I didn't even remember to bring my glasses.
That's okay.
Here, just take
Yeah, I
mine.
forgot what I was going to mention now.
Well, it's 6:24.
Or the underlying connotation.
I'm trying to remember what I underlined.
Applied to Nickelodeon for the last
Isn't
7,000
today the
several
17th?
decades. SpongeBob being in Bikini Bottom.
Today's the 17th, it's
Crabs.
257.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was young.
Sandy cheeks.
This is gonna be a bit of a scroll, but I mean like the
No kidding.
Valley of the Moon.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I heard you have
I'm
to
only a
start-
week away.
valleys.
That's okay, we can
Exactly.
double back.
I mean, yeah, we could just go over that.
I didn't
later.
question you. I was just like,
I heard you talk about
It's
Schopenhauer. I'm
it's
like,
in
oh,
between
wait a
language
minute.
too, I heard.
because that would mean that.
I mean,
I'm only a week away from my own schedule. That's all right.
That's totally fine. You do you.
What is water?
I've been enjoying this.
That's a good final lesson to end on, I think. That's I've seen the
David
speech.
Foster Wallace. So the will for this alone has interest, but no one's read this article already because you were expecting to talk about the will to believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
How much time do I have?
We have like
Art
15
takes
minutes.
15 minutes.
6:24.
But I really should give a whole lecture to that, especially Cornell West.
Yeah, let's just keep going.
So,
Roll with it. Just, what do you have underlined?
on page 624, I have underlined, for this alone has interest for the intellect as such. That is, for the pure subject of knowledge which has become free from the aims of the will. It's the will, understanding the will. In a sense, this is like karma for him. That, in a sense, I interpret it also today as entropy, right? If you think of, the laws of thermodynamics, right? You're all familiar with entropy? Maybe, maybe not. Let me just...
There's going to be a point in the universe where just everything is the same. Supposedly, I think. Like, it's like everything's just been spread out so far apart. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
So, it's the second law of thermodynamics. First law is that I can't remember the first one.
That's okay.
But in any case, the second one is that all complex systems that are closed, so no new energy coming in, will decline. That the overall energy leaks, it decreases.
I thought it was opposite, like it just stays there. And it's a closed system enough. If you can get out or in, it stays the same.
Doesn't it lose
It
energy?
uses energy. In fact, it's considered
But
time.
it's never. There's no such thing as a closed state in.
Yeah, there's no
reality.
such thing, but it's.
So.
But it would stay, like, no energy is lost, no energy is given, it just stays there. It can be turned into other things. It can be turned into matter, it can be turned into light, it can be turned into heat.
But if you're using energy and you're not getting
It's not a
energy.
closed system. It does diffuse.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a closed
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
Because of the universe itself. But
Yeah, except the universe itself, but it's growing, so I don't even know if that's really closed, or is it? Yeah, it's closed, but it's just, it's a balloon, that's the benefit.
And so basically, it's a decline of order. Everything So I guess the perfect example of this is the roulette wheel. Started it off spinning, and the balls are all running around, but then it will lose energy and slow down, and then once it does, symmetry breaks and the balls fall down. And
another one is like you have a jar filled with two colored balls, and they're like split down perfectly down the center. And if you begin shaking it over time, there'll be the ratio to them will be the same. Like you have probably the same as blue and red balls all over the place.
that's like Maxwell's demon, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it uniformly spreads out.
Yeah. Or changes to be the same.
But so the interesting thing here is that this is essentially time. Because as time proceeds, the energy declines. So that's why time runs the way it does, is because it indicates the gradual decline in the amount of energy in a particular system. We're not a closed system. We keep gaining energy from the sun.
And losing it says
We lose it in other things, but we keep gaining it from the sun, so you can eat, and you don't starve because you can eat. But here's the interesting thing. I think I've mentioned this book before too, and that is Carl Sagan's son's book, Dorian. I forget how. Oh no, I missed it. Into the Pool. Dorian, into the pool.
D-O-R-I-N.
Gosh, you wouldn't think he's as old as he is now, but he is pretty old. Carl Sagan's been dead a long time. Died pretty young of cancer, if you remember. But the neat thing about this book is that cool, of course, is a reference to entropy, because as things cool down, that's the loss, right? But life fights against entropy, and in fact becomes more and more complex. So the interesting thing of the history of life on the planet is that entropy continues to get whooped by life as life keeps evolving and becoming more and more complex and finding better ways of using the energy. It's just absolutely kind of amazing.
Yeah.
We're more efficient, so it's kind of neat. But going back to Schopenhauer, we think that for Schopenhauer, the will, which is essentially the nature of the universe to be basically nasty, suck the life out of you, right? Is that's karma, that's fate. There's no way out of it. Life is miserable that way. In fact, that's why some of his quotes are, it's better never to have been born than to live in the world. Quotes.
A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants.
So Disney will teach you what you want to want. You're not really free to decide for yourself what you want out of life, because the art of your entertainment will teach you what you want. And then you're free to want that, but you're not free to choose for yourself what you decided you liked, because unless you've elevated yourself or educated yourself to the point where you can look back at what made you want what you have or what you want. Why do you want this? Why do you want to have a rifle range in the old Fred Meyer's out in Palmer? Because, we need a rifle range out in Palmer because everybody's got guns and no place to go shoot it. So let's have a range out there, and we've got this nice building, so we'll have 60 lanes, we'll be able to have lots of different people shooting at the same time. Hopefully you'll wear headset, the
Ear protector.
Yeah. Why
Just
would-
open your jaw.
Oh yeah,
That's
that'll
what I've been
help.
told. Just open your jaw if you don't have your.
So you put the gun in there.
Shoot, I
Uh,
remember
When your jaw's
one.
closed, I think it does something with like sound.
I remember one turkey shoot at a firehouse in the Poconos, and it was inside a metal. And because it was raining outside, they set up the range from like the open doorway. They had a table there, and so everybody was shooting outside. So you're actually inside this metal building where all the kids were having all the food and everything. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But you had to show up, you had to participate, otherwise the community would think you were weird or something. So, kind of
Weird for
one of
not
those.
wanting to be dead.
There's some other quotes though. The one I was hoping to. The two enemies of human happiness are pain and boredom.
That's true.
Accurate.
Just remember, once you're over the hill, you begin to pick up speed. Well, thanks.
Oh, really?
This dude really likes his solitude.
He did. He did. Did we talk about Schopenhauer once before? I think so.
Lofty solitude.
I pointed out his only friend
The
was his
fate of
dog.
every great soul is to live alone.
No thanks.
Okay.
I like his hair. Like
I don't.
no, it has that like mad look to it. And it's just.
Oh yeah, we did. We did talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. You just said it.
Well, I totally messed up today, though.
That's okay.
That's
I'm
fine.
supposed to do James, and I did Schopenhauer.
We're still there.
That's okay. We can do James next time.
I misread my own. And it was like I've looked at it multiple times to make sure.
It's okay.
We're
We're at the
all
end of the semester. I think we're all a little delirious.
We all get a couple of free passes at the end of the
Like-
semester.
I think it's,
Well, we need a good quiz question
yes, we do.
in any case. So, should I ask why did Mufasa die?
Because he didn't
I
move
don't
fast.
know, it's an obvious answer.
I will answer that if you ask that.
Okay, so why did Mufasa die?
Because you
Okay.
didn't move faster. brought
You
this
could
up.
be a little more sophisticated, though. You
Nope.
could say that the plot couldn't have moved forward unless Scar had killed Mufasa.
Nope.
That
I'm saying
was a
because he didn't
necessary
move faster.
step in even like a Greek tragedy.
Because he didn't move faster.
Your leg's looking good, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, you know, in the normal kind of, not the kind of.
On the route to recovery, it's got a lot of bending momentum. So
What happened to you?
I had an ACL repair for the second time, so surgery and stuff. It's fun. Yeah.
So that
There was a crazy article in the paper today criticizing Charles Woolforth's article the other day that he wrote about Keegan Randall, who was our Alaska Olympic star from the Korean.
You guys keep forgetting about Keegan Messing. I mean, he skated for Canada, but he grew up.
Ah,
But
yeah,
he went from Canada, so
But
he's
I
a
mean-
traitor.
yeah. There were other
Did pretty good
heroes
from
too.
Being from like Girdwood.
Narrative.
But Charles wrote about Keegan that would he want his daughters to grow up to be like her, and he said no. So the article today is criticizing
Well,
him
what
for
was
that.
his reason?
What was his reason? Yeah.
Yeah, like I want to
Um,
know what made him. say
What
that.
made him say that is because of all of the training. They basically, she had to focus for, she's like 30 something. And so all this time she's had to focus on that particular sport and train all the time.
Yeah, I mean, what
And
do you do when you're done?
That meant she wasn't doing all these other
Schools
things.
bragging about it and kind of hopefully inspire other children to do what you did. So
Return to her.
When you're done?
She
I don't know,
coached
I feel
it.
like-
She coached at Service High for 3 years after her last Olympic run. She coached cross country, so I mean, I can see how they influence it. But I don't know. I think as a parent, if I was a parent, I wouldn't push my daughter to do anything like that. But if they found something that they truly loved and was like, you know, I want to be the best in the world at this, I try to support them to the best of my capabilities without putting myself in a financial situation. Be like, if you're 30, I'm like, you're not in my house. I'll go to your events, but I'm not gonna.
I'm not gonna.
I'm not gonna let you live in my basement for, while you pretend to pursue this dream.
Yeah, well, I think as a perfect example of how parents get involved that way was the golfer. His one father was black and his mother was from Taiwan or wherever. He's the golfer that won multiple times in the highest level of golf. Had some other troubles. What the heck was his name? I can't think of it.
Tiger Woods?
Tiger Woods.
It is Tiger Woods. Okay. I was like, oh, I don't know his history, but yeah.
But from what I understand, the father had him playing golf when he was like 4 or something, you know, and learning how to swing. So he's basically, and the other would be the 2 sisters that play tennis.
Oh yeah.
They've had them playing tennis from very, very early and constantly, so that to become that kind of an athlete, you basically have to spend your whole life dedicated to that. And Charles was like, no thanks, not going to encourage my kids to be that dedicated to one thing. But the article today was arguing with Charles that, if I could get my daughter to do such and such, I would. And then he pointed out at the very end, I haven't had any children yet. And I was like, oh, that totally ruined your argument.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like
Have children first, then
there's the
decide whether or
argument
not.
where, for a lot of sports, especially like I think a lot of the sports that are commonly broadcast, you got gymnastics and stuff. You got to be 16 to 21.